There was a man in this city, a man who had everything, everything money can buy, everything power can guarantee, everything success promises to those who work without stopping, without resting, without looking to either side. His name was Rafael Montero Caldas, and he could not see people. Not because he was blind, not because he was evil in the common sense of the word, but because, over the years, without him ever noticing, the world had been reduced to one single thing. Numbers, only numbers. Rafael woke up at 5 in the morning, every day, 7 days a week. Not because he loved the early hours, but because every hour spent sleeping was an hour lost. And Rafael Montero Caldas did not lose. He had never lost, and he had absolutely no intention of starting. At 47 years old, he was the owner of the Caldas Group, a conglomerate, a machine, construction companies, real estate developers, luxury hotel chains, logistics firms. A fortune estimated at over 2 billion. 2 billion. And still, there was something empty. But Rafael never stopped to think about that. Stopping was weakness. Thinking too much was dangerous. Constant movement was what kept everything running, what kept him running. The employees had a saying, whispered in the glass corridors between meetings: Dr. Rafael doesn't fire people out of anger. He fires them out of calculation. And that sentence said everything. He lived alone. A 500 square meter penthouse, 2 luxury cars, a wine collection he rarely touched, a wardrobe made exclusively of dark suits and white shirts, always the same, always precise. He had once had a wife, Isabella, for 6 years. She left on a Tuesday morning. She left only a letter on the kitchen counter. Rafael read it, folded it, put it in a drawer, and went to the office. The letter said, "I loved you, Rafael, but you were never here. And I can no longer love an absence." He did not cry, not that day, not in the days that follow, because Rafael Montero Caldas had learnt, at some point in his life, he could no longer locate. That feeling was slow, and slow was dangerous. That night, all of that was about to change. It was a Tuesday, curiously, always a Tuesday. The driver was unavailable. A simple thing, a small thing, the kind of setback that, for most people, would mean nothing. But for Rafael, who controlled every detail of his day with surgical precision, it was a piece out of place. He could have called another car, but he didn't. For a reason he himself could not explain, Rafael Montero Caldas decided to walk. It was 8 blocks to the restaurant. The cold winter air might do him good. He took the private elevator down, crossed the marble lobby. Past the security guards without looking at them, as he always did, as if they were part of the architecture, and began to walk, eyes forward, thoughts on the business dinner, on the agenda, on the numbers, always the numbers. The city was a backdrop, a stage. The people on the sidewalks were shadows passing by. He did not see them. He never saw them. Until that night, because that night there was a boy. He was sitting on the sidewalk. Leaning against the wall of a commercial building already closed for the night, a folded piece of cardboard beneath him, a warm backpack between his knees. I looked about 11 years old, maybe younger, maybe older. The street ages children in ways that are hard to measure. Dark hair, disheveled, a thin face, not the thinness of an active child who runs and jumps and never sits still. The thinness of a child who doesn't eat enough. Who knows hunger not as a concept, but as a daily companion? But his eyes were different, large, dark, alive, with a clarity that was unsettling. A sharpness that shouldn't exist in such a young face. Raphael walked past, or almost walked past. "Sir." The voice was small, but firm. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't the voice of someone begging. It was a call. Raphael stopped, turned slowly. Looked at the boy with the same expression as always, neutral, closed, impenetrable. "What is it?" The boy didn't flinch, didn't look down, didn't step back. He simply pointed at Raphael's left wrist, at the watch. "Sir, my father had a watch just like yours." Raphael looked at his own wrist. The watch was rare, handcrafted by a Swiss watchmaker of the highest standard. Very few units in the world. A piece that cost the equivalent of several years of an ordinary worker's salary. The idea that the father of this street boy had a watch like that was unlikely, was impossible, or so it seemed. "Your father had a watch like this one," Raphael repeated. The skepticism was there, clear, unhidden. "He did," said the boy, without hesitating. "The strap was a different color. His was black, yours is brown, but the dial is the same, with the two thin hands, a pause, and the number 6 different from all the others." Raphael went still. The number 6, different from all the others. That specific model had one particular feature, discreet, almost invisible to anyone not paying close attention. The numeral 6 was engraved in italic, unlike every other number on the dial. A signature of the watchmaker, an old tradition. Very few people knew that, without having seen the watch up close, with attention, with care. Raphael looked at the boy differently now. Still not with soft eyes, but with different eyes. Eyes calculating a new variable, an unexpected one. "How do you know that?" The boy answered simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "'Cause I used to stare at it a lot. When my father held my hand, I would look at his watch. He said it was special, that one day he would tell me the story." A pause, long, heavy. "He never told you?" The boy shook his head, slowly. "He died before he could." Rafael Montero Caldas stood still on the sidewalk. The cold wind cut through his jacket. The restaurant was 5 blocks away. The business dinner would start in 40 minutes. He should have left, but he stayed. There was something about that boy that made Raphael uncomfortable in a way he couldn't classify. And Raphael didn't like things he couldn't classify. "What's your name, Miguel? How old are you?" 11. "Where is your mother?" A shadow passed over the boy's face, quick but real. "She got sick a few months ago. She's in the hospital. I stay here waiting for her to get better." Raphael looked at him, and then did something he rarely did. He crouched down. To the boy's eye level, the dark suit would get dirty, would probably tear. It didn't matter. "Tell me about your father." And he didn't fully understand why he said that. Miguel studied him for a moment. Children who live on the streets develop a sharp instinct. They can detect the dangerous adult. The indifferent adult, and the adult who, rarely, is genuine. After a few seconds, Miguel decided, and began to speak. His father's name was Enrique, an engineer. Not a great one, but competent, honest. He worked for years at a construction company. Rose slowly through the ranks, saved money with discipline, bought a small apartment. Married Anna, a public school teacher who loved literature and made orange cake every Sunday. For a few years, the family lived well. Not in abundance, but with dignity, with meals on the table, with bedtime stories, with weekends at the park. Miguel described those times with a melancholic precision, not with bitterness, with a calm sadness far too mature for 11 years old. Then, the company went bankrupt. Enrique lost his job. He tried to start over, but he was nearly 50, and the market used that as a silent excuse not to hire him. There were months of searching, then a year. The savings ran out. The apartment was lost. Enrique didn't give up all at once. He fought. He did odd jobs, made deliveries, accepted any work he could find, but every month, one step lower. And then the diagnosis came. A serious heart condition, an expensive surgery, no health insurance, no money, no way out. Enrique died on a cold morning, in the hallway of a public hospital, waiting for a bed that never came. Miguel was 9 years old. "The watch," said Miguel, after a long pause, "was in his pocket when he died. The nurse gave it to me. I kept it, but later, someone stole the backpack where I had it. They took the watch too." He said it without anger, simply as a fact, as one more item on the list of things that had been taken from him. Rafael Montero, Cardos, was crouching on a cold sidewalk, listening to an 11-year-old boy, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Maybe since he was a child, maybe since before he became Dr. Raphael, he felt shame. He called the restaurant and cancelled. The business partner on the other end was surprised. Rafael Montero, Caldas, never cancelled business commitments. Never. Rafael simply said something urgent had come up, and hung up before they could ask questions. Then he looked at Miguel. "Did you eat today?" "This morning. Donna Claudia gave me some bread." Rafael stood up, looked around, found a small popular restaurant open a few meters away. The tabletops were worn formica. The chairs were colored plastic, the menu written on a chalkboard. It was not the kind of place he frequented, but there was light, there was warmth, and there was the smell of real food. "Come with me." Miguel hesitated for a second, then picked up his worn backpack and stood. They sat at a table in the back. Rafael ordered without looking at the menu: rice, beans, roasted chicken, orange juice, 2 plates, 2 portions. When the food arrived, Miguel looked at his plate. And didn't rush. He picked up the utensils carefully, murmured something quietly, a prayer perhaps, a thank you, and began to eat slowly. With dignity, Rafael watched, and felt the wall around himself crack, somewhere he couldn't locate. When they left the restaurant, the cold had grown stronger. The sky was heavy. Miguel looked up, not with poetry, but with the practical gaze of someone calculating survival probabilities. "It's going to rain." "Yes," Rafael agreed. Silence. "Where do you sleep when it rains?" "There's an overhang down there. I stay there with Mr. Armando." Rafael stood still on the sidewalk. The car he had called was arriving. He looked at the car. He looked at the boy, and made a decision that had gone through no calculation, no risk analysis, no projected outcomes. The first decision like that in many years. "Come with me." Miguel frowned. "Where?" "There's a hotel from my group 3 blocks from here." "You'll sleep in a clean room tonight, with heating, and tomorrow we talk." The boy looked at him for a long moment. "You don't know me. Why would you do this?" And Rafael Montero Caldas, the man of numbers, the cold executive, the man with the invisible wall, looked at that 11-year-old child, and gave the most honest answer he had given in years. "I don't know." Miguel was quiet for one more moment, then adjusted the backpack on his shoulder. "Okay," he said. That night, Rafael made 3 calls. The first was to Marcos, his personal assistant. He asked him to find everything about the hospital where Aina was admitted, diagnosis, current situation, what she needed to access proper treatment. The second was to the Caldas Group's private physician. "I need you available tomorrow morning." The third call, he held the phone for nearly 5 minutes before making it. It was to Beatrice, his older sister, whom he had barely spoken to in 2 years. She had always told him he had lost himself, that the money had consumed whatever was human in him. He always hung up halfway through. This time, when she answered with a "Rafael," full of surprise, he didn't hang up. "B," he said, with a voice she probably hadn't heard in years. "I need to tell you something." He told her everything. The boy, the watch, the dinner, the story of Enrique and Aina. And as he spoke, he noticed his voice was different, not calculated, not neutral. "Real," Beatrice cried. He didn't cry. He still didn't know how. But he stayed on the line, listening to his sister, for 40 minutes. And that, for Rafael Montero Caldas, was a revolution. Marcos called back 55 minutes later. "Dr. Rafael, I found the patient. Aina, 42 years old, admitted 63 days ago. Severe pneumonia, complicated by malnutrition and exhaustion. She is stable, but weak." The hospital doesn't have the conditions to offer the treatment she needs. There are missing medications. There's no proper nutritional care. Rafael closed his eyes. "There's more," Marcos continued, with a slightly different tone than usual. "She has been frequently asking for a boy. The nurses have noted it. She asks for her son every time she is lucid." Silence. Long. Heavy. "What do you want me to do?" Marcos asked. "Tomorrow morning," said Rafael, "you will contact the hospital administration. I want Anna transferred to Dr. Enrique Pay's clinic. All costs fully covered by the Caldas group. I want her to have access to everything she needs: food, medication, care." A pause. "Everything." "Yes, sir." "And Marcos." Rafael hesitated for a second. "Good work." Marcos was probably surprised. Rafael rarely said that. Rafael came down to breakfast earlier than Miguel expected. The boy was already seated, in front of a plate with bread, cheese, fruit, and juice, eating with that same calm dignity from the night before. When Rafael sat across from him, Miguel looked up. "Good morning." "Good morning." Rafael ordered coffee, looked at the boy for a moment, and said directly, because it was the only way he knew, "Last night I made some calls. Your mother will be transferred to a better clinic today. She will get the treatment she needs." Miguel stopped eating. Completely still, for a few seconds, his large dark eyes began to fill, slowly, not with fast dramatic tears, but with the kind that takes time to come, because they had been held back for so long, stored carefully so they wouldn't show on the street, so they wouldn't scare his mother. "You," he started. His voice broke. He tried again. "Why?" Rafael looked at the boy and said something that surprised even himself. "Because it's the right thing to do." "And because your father deserved to have someone do this for you." The tears came then, silent, but deep. Miguel didn't try to hide them. He let them fall. Held the juice glass with both small hands, and Rafael sat there, present. He didn't stand up, didn't look away, didn't try to rush or end that moment. He was simply there, in a way he hadn't been anywhere in a very long time. That afternoon, Rafael took Miguel to the hospital. to say goodbye to his mother before the transfer. Anna was lying in a ward bed, pale, thin, but with living eyes when she saw her son walk through the door. Miguel. Her voice came out hoarse, but the love in it was crystal clear. Mum. Raphael stayed at the door, discreet, but Anna saw him. She looked at him with an expression mixing confusion and gratitude. Miguel explained quietly what had happened. Anna listened. Her eyes going back and forth between her son and the stranger in the dark suit who had changed the course of their lives. When Miguel finished, Anna looked at Raphael for a long moment. "Sir," she said, with the voice she had, "I have no way to repay what you're doing." "It's not a debt," Raphael answered simply. Anna nodded, and then said something no one expected. "Miguel told me about the watch." She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were the eyes of someone who had decided to share something long kept hidden. That watch was given to Enrique by the owner of the company where he worked. When Enrique completed 20 years with the company, the owner said it was for a man who had given him the greatest thing one person can give another. A pause. Honesty. Raphael went still. "Did you know that company, sir?" Anna asked. A pause. "Caldas Construxes?" The air in the hospital corridor grew heavier. Rafael Montero Caldas looked at Anna, then at Miguel, then at his own wrist. Caldas Construxes had been his father's first company, the company that preceded the Caldas Group, founded when his father was still young, still believed in certain things. A company that had gone bankrupt when Rafael was 22 years old. A company that had left many people without jobs, including an engineer named Enrique. Miguel's father had worked for Rafael's father, and the watch on Rafael's wrist, that specific watch with the number 6 in italic, had been given by his father to Miguel's father, as recognition, as gratitude, as proof that, at that time, there was still something human in the Caldas story. Rafael looked at the watch for a long moment. A moment that seemed to last longer than time allowed. Then, slowly, he began to unclasp it. "No," he said in a low voice. More to himself than to anyone else. "I can't give the watch." Miguel and Anna looked at him, not understanding. "Because it was never mine to give," Rafael continued. "It belonged to your father, Miguel, and by right, by a debt I didn't even know existed. It belongs to you." And he placed the watch in Miguel's hands, slowly, with care. The boy's fingers closed around the watch. With the kind of care that only exists when holding something that belonged to someone deeply loved. He said nothing. There were no words for that. Anna in the bed cried in silence. And Rafael Montero, Caldas, the cold man, the man of numbers, the man with the invisible wall, felt something move inside his chest. Something that had been still for a very long time. Something that still had no name, but that he already knew. He would never ignore again. In the months that followed, much changed. Aina recovered. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. The body doesn't forget what it has been through, but with proper treatment, with nutrition, with care, she came back. First she stood up. Then she walked down the clinic hallway. Then she stepped outside into the garden, with Miguel beside her. Both of them in the soft light of a spring morning. In silence, together, alive, Raphael paid for everything. Not as charity, that word he came to despise. Charity has distance, has superiority, has separation. He paid as someone repairing something, as someone acknowledging a debt that wasn't contracted by him, but that carried his last name. Calder's group changed. Small things at first. A new policy here, a support program there, a different kind of listening in the corridors. Raphael didn't transform overnight. He didn't become a saint. He was still demanding, precise. Sometimes difficult, but there was something different in his eyes when he heard people's stories. There was presence, where before there had been only distance. He started talking to Beatrice again. They had a Sunday lunch together, the first in nearly 3 years. They sat at that table for 4 hours, talking about their father, about childhood, about things that had been stored away for far too long. Miguel was enrolled in a good school. Raphael didn't adopt him. That wasn't what the story called for. What Miguel needed was his mother, and his mother was getting better. What Raphael did was simpler and deeper. He showed up. He was present. He took Miguel to the movies sometimes. He answered the messages full of questions about watches, about engineering, about how companies worked. And on one ordinary afternoon, Miguel sent a short message. "Mr. Raphael, I told my mum you seem different from before." She said it's because you've started seeing people. I think that's it. Raphael stared at that message for a long time, then wrote back, "Your father taught me that." Without knowing it, months later, on an ordinary afternoon, Raphael walked past the same street where he had found Miguel on that cold night. The sidewalk was empty. The city was the same, but he was not. He stopped at that exact spot, looked at his own wrist. He was not wearing a watch. He had gotten a new one. Simple, no brand, just functional. The watch that mattered was on the wrist of an 11-year-old boy who went to school every morning with his backpack on and his eyes full of future. Raphael stood on the sidewalk, breathed in the city air, and for the first time in a very long time, he was not thinking about the next meeting, not about the next deal, not about the next target. He was simply there, present, and sometimes that is all a person needs to be.